Myths are funny old things, aren't they? You know, when you say myth to someone, they think, oh, it's just lies. It doesn't happen. It's nothing, you know, myth. But I heard someone say once that no myth ever happened, but every myth is true. And I really like that, because myths to me are ancient tales that come from a time when we were trying to work out our place within the world. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have, you know, any sort of scientists particularly. And we looked at the storm and we tried to work out our relationship with the storm. We looked at the sea and tried to work out our relationship with the sea. We looked at the turning seasons and we looked at the sun and the moon, and we tried to explain and understand our position in the world in relationship to these vast cosmic forces that we could barely understand.
Hello, this is Kevin Pennell, and welcome to episode 171 of Toward a Better Life.
Roedd Math fab Mathonwy yn arglwydd ar wynedd, a Phryderi fab Pwyll yn arglwydd ar un cartref ar 20 yn y de. Dyma oedd y rhai hynny, 7 cantref dyfed a 7 morganog, a 4 Ceredigion a 3 ystrad tywydd. Ac yn yr amser hwnnw, ni fyddai Math fab Mathonwy byw, ond tra fyddai a'i ddeu droed yng nghôl y morwyn, ond ni fyddai cynnwr ffrfel yn ei rwystro. Dyma oedd y forwyn a oedd ganddo goewin y ferch Pipin, o ddôl Pipin yn Arfon. A honno oedd y forwyn decaf o bawb y gwyddid amdanynt.
Peace. How gentle you are. How precious. How delicate. And how easy it is by the hands of men to destroy you. There had been peace for many years across the 7 cantrevs of Dyfed. The land and people prospered. And as those years passed, so memories of the battle that nearly destroyed 2 islands, and of the great mist that befell the kingdom, began to fade. Maybe I became complacent, overconfident that this peace would last. But one night, as I lay sleeping at my court beside the mound of Gorsedd Arbedd, in my dream I found myself on horseback. Ahead of me paced a pack of wondrous hounds, whose fur was white and their ears were red. And as their fur shone, so their ears glistened in the sunlight. Beside me, a tall man in grey, riding upon the back of a grey steed, a hunting horn around his waist. The forest floor danced with the light of 1,000,000 stars. He raised his hand, and we brought our horses to a stop. Then he reached out and took my arm. And I looked into familiar eyes, so ancient they knew no end. "Beware," he said, "the trickster is coming.
That was Damh the Bard with the prologue from his newest release, Fourth Branch of the Mabinogi, used with his permission. Not only that, but I'll be chatting with Dave for this week's episode about that album, so do stay tuned. We're going to have a great time with that. Thank you, dear listener, for tuning into the program. Regardless of where in the world you might find yourself, our lives do depend on the flow with a natural rhythm of life. The flow of life to ultimately aim toward balance. And this is the timeless message of Toward a Better Life. Going with the flow, the rhythm of life. And that's also performed through implementing balance, harmony, compassion, kindness into our lives, personally, culturally, and spiritually. This all begins with each one of us as individuals, and I like to share these concepts as you, dear listener, know that if you've been listening for a while, concepts on the podcast from around the world seeking others of the same spirit, heart, and mind. And you can be part of that because I offer you the opportunity to share your prose, your music, your poetry, your storytelling, whatever it may be. Because, through the application of the many insights and teachings from you as well as others on these episodes, we can become better souls and spirits and true human beings that continue a journey toward wholeness and harmony, not only for ourselves, but for all the generations yet to come. Please subscribe to the program if you haven't done so already through your favorite podcast platform, and do keep following for weekly magical insights to earth-based spirituality, self-development, self-care. Also, remember to support the program Toward a Better Life by leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, whatever podcast platform you might be using. And speaking of support, ad-free episodes are now available of Toward a Better Life through Patreon. Now, as a paid subscriber, you can enjoy episodes without advertisements. All you need to do is visit Patreon, search for Toward a Better Life podcast, and then once you're there, you'll see the option to subscribe. Not only will you be able to listen ad-free, but there are discounts available to subscribers for my online services and classes and so much more. Things yet to come. And there are 3 tiers of membership. Now, in appreciation of your support on Patreon, I have equal benefits for all levels. The tier you choose depends on what you can afford to donate. Every tier will go toward helping me continue my podcast, classes, and workshops and writing. Thanks ever so much for your kind support, and do sign up today. Visit my website if you'd like, towardabetterlife.com, where you can contact me to learn more about the free discovery call to help you on your journey toward a better life, along with prior episodes, learning opportunities, and services that I offer outside the podcast that I just referenced, plus a few accessories to assist you on your journey. Contact me through my website or send inquiries to kevin@towardabetterlife.com. All right, let's get on with this. As I said a moment ago, we're in a real treat situation this week. In for a real treat on the episode as I welcome Damh the Bard back once again. And in this episode, it's the 4th branch of the Mabinogi, and it's the culmination of a 10-year project for Dave to tell the story. Now, without going any further, everything's going to be explained here in a minute. Won't you please welcome my friend from across the pond, Damh the Bard, as we chat about the 4th branch of the Mabinogi. I'm truly delighted, and I'm going to even say honored to have Dave the Bard back as our guest on Toward a Better Life. It's been a little bit, and Dave, welcome, welcome, welcome across the pond.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Nice to see your face on my screen again.
Likewise, likewise. It's wonderful to have this opportunity, and I truly appreciate the work that you're doing. And I'm still listening to, I still will, but listening to Druidcast on a regular basis. And I should say that I actually finished catching up. I've listened to every episode that has ever been on Druidcast.
Wow. Wow.
So,
What a journey that was. I bet 220 odd episodes.
mhm.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
as we're moving along, I have to share something very, very funny because I talked with someone we both know and appreciate, and that was Nymphia. And you know how sometimes when you're doing podcasts, and if you're catching up, you might find a situation where you finally come to that place where you're repeating them, and you say,
Mhm.
okay, whatever. And we were down on holiday, and I'm on my way back on the interstate down there in Florida. And all of a sudden, this episode comes up with Nymphia. And I went, huh. And I had actually ordered one of her CDs through a promotion that she did on social media. And I thought, well, this is interesting and this is timely because, I have you scheduled to come up and I have her
Yeah.
scheduled. And I said, geez, I'm just going to listen to this as just kind of giving me some research ahead of time. We had a
You're
wonderful
right.
time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she says hello. So there.
Well, if you see her or ever, give her a hug back from me.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. We will. We will. So you have some pretty exciting news. And
Mm.
I think we're going to focus on that. And the funny thing, Dave, is I have actually been wanting to talk with you before the fourth branch of the Mabinogi was you released, because, and I'm going back at least 2 to 3 months. I kid you not. It's been in the back of my mind to reach out to you to talk with you about the Mabinogi because it is chocked full of all kinds of spiritual lessons, some
Mm.
wonderful antiquity information, and it's just mind-blowing to the point where I went out and got myself a copy and started reading it, and it's intriguing and it's
Yeah.
beautiful to read. But I appreciate what you think. I think you mentioned in a recent email that yes, it by all means it's a wonderful opportunity and it's really cool to glean information as you read it, but you really do feel that Mabinogi really needs to be heard, and that's what we're all about today. So
Yeah. That's
yeah,
it.
and
I mean,
we started the program with Prelude. So if you want to tell us a little bit about Prelude.
hmm So the prelude you've just played is the introduction to the fourth branch. It's the first thing that you will hear when you first press play or you put your CD in or however it is that you consume your music. Um, and it basically sets the scene. It's all of the albums of the Mabinogi that I've produced. This is the fourth one, completing the cycle. Started it in 2016, so it's taken a decade to get here.
Hmm.
And I wanted from the word go, and I think it was a good choice. I wanted the story to be told from the angle of the Mabon himself, the
Hmm.
Mabon being the divine child, which is what the name Mabinogi comes from. It's the story of the divine child. And in the first three branches, that divine child is Praderi. And then in the fourth branch, there is a big old change that I mean, okay, these stories are over 1,000 years old, all right?
Yeah.
Probably, So I think we're beyond spoilers now, really, at this stage in the game. But there's a big old change, and he is, and he has a change of personality and type. But those words that you've just heard on the prelude are spoken by Praderi, and he is telling where he is at this point at the beginning of the fourth branch. Each of the branches of the albums have an introduction from Praderi telling where we've been and where we're going. So that's what that was all about. If anyone was confused listening to that, that's what you heard. Praderi telling his tale, and then the moment that prelude ends in the album, the story begins, and our tale begins, telling the fourth branch. Yeah.
Mm. What inspired you to do the Mabinogi?
Um, when I first found, okay, so my route into this was through ceremonial magic back when I was in my teens and my 20s.
Okay.
That was my route in, and I found that it was very, I wanted magic in my life, basically. But as I progressed through those grades in ceremonial magic, I found that I was yearning for something a little bit more from the earth, a bit more from the ground beneath my feet. I am, I think, extremely lucky and fortunate, and I'm very grateful from this that I was born on the land of Albion,
Mm.
and so I went searching for what I thought would be the oldest tales of the peoples of this island.
Mm.
Of course, Albion has been home to many peoples over the centuries, and I went looking for a Brythonic tale, a tale that came from people who were pre-Roman, who spoke a Brythonic tongue, and of course those people still exist, and they are in Wales, and so I looked at the Welsh myths, and of course, you find Culhwch and Olwen, you find a lot the tales of Taliesin and Ceridwen, but the seminal tales are the four branches. In fact, when you talk of the Mabinogion, really, that is what they are. All of the other tales are not really part of the Mabinogion. It is only the first four branches that are the Mabinogi. And as I say, they to me they tell the tale of this divine child, the Mabon, Praderi in the first three branches, and I will say Llaugafes in the fourth branch. And I bought my first copy, which was the Geoffrey Gantz version, the Penguin Geoffrey Gantz version of the Mabinogion, when I was years ago. I mean, in the 90s, in the early 90s, this would have been. I had my own business, and I was sales repping around the country, and I was in Bath. I was staying in a hotel in Bath, and I'd gone through Glastonbury, of all
Oh,
places,
okay.
down in the West Country, and
Yeah.
I picked up a copy of the Mabinogion, and I thought, this is it. This is it. These are the tales that are going to ignite my very soul. And they did, but not in the way that I expected, because I got to the evening, I finished my calls, I went to the hotel, and I opened that first page, and I was greeted with vast amounts of words I couldn't even pronounce. They had so many W's in and Y's, and I just didn't know what they were. So there was that to contend with, being in English, and but I also found the language to be very, very middle. It was obviously Middle Ages. It was written down in the Middle Ages and overtly Christian, to be
Hmm.
honest with you.
Yeah.
They read like a medieval romance, like you would have read in Chrétien de Troyes, stories of Arthur, King Arthur, and stuff like that. And I think I was probably expecting a little bit more from them than I got, and I could tell that there was magic there, but it was not overt. I mean, obviously, in the first branch, Puig travels to Anun, which is the other world. That's a magical thing in itself, and he meets Araun, the chief of Anun, which is the lord of that other world. So it's definitely there, but the language was so detached. I felt it was really detached. It didn't inspire me when I was reading it. The stories did, but the language didn't. And then of course you get to the fourth branch, and that was always my favorite branch, because the magic there is very, very there. It is real and overt and in your face. You can't deny that the fourth branch is, to a casual reader, is the most magical of branches and most obvious, that has its roots way, way, way beyond the Middle Ages.
Mm.
So I loved it, and I knew there was something there, but I needed something more, and then I started to write pagan songs, and I wanted to bring some of those myths to songs. So I wrote Oak, Broom, and Meadow Sweet, which is on the Spirit of Albion album, and I also wrote Blood Aywedd, which is on Hearn's Apprentice, the first album that I released. And so, and at that time later, I was also. This is a really long answer. I'm very sorry, but
Don't be
I
sorry.
do tend,
I'm
I do
enjoying
tend
it,
to
and I'm
waffle.
sure the listeners are.
Okay, okay. So at the same time, it was 1995, I joined the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids as well, because I felt like that um, that path was what was calling me. The earth
Mm.
religion, the earth spiritualities were the ones that were calling me, and Druidry was what really reached out into my heart. And what really reached out to me was the bardic tradition, of storytelling, of poetry, but not just writing stories. But I guess the difference between a gardener and a pagan gardener would be that X factor of just knowing that the plants you are working with are alive and part of the earth, and your brothers and sisters and all that kind of stuff. And so I found Druidry, and I was a musician, but I had been taught Irish folk music as a child, and then branched straight off into heavy metal during my teens and 20s, and then came back after I joined Obod to folk music, and that's what led me to write some of these songs. And the Mabinogian just would not go away. It would not go away. And when I walked into my sacred grove, and if you're a member of Obod, you'll know this. You are encouraged to go inside in meditation and spiritual path working, and to find your own inner sacred grove. And when I went into my sacred grove, I was met by a barn owl in one of the branches of the trees. And I realized that my guide through my bardic grade within Obod was Blood Aywedd, whose name means owl, or flower face. And so the one of the goddesses of the fourth branch of the Mabinogi took my hand, or with her feathers, and led me through my bardic training. And my when I finally traded in my double bass drum Premier Black Shadow drum kit and sold it, thinking I'm not going to be in a heavy metal band again, the money I got from that, I bought a Celtic harp, and I named the Celtic harp Blossom, because I felt like, which is, again, Blood Aedd, her first form was Flower Maiden, and so she became Blood Aedd, or Blossom. And then when I got into my ovate grade, I went into my ovate grove, and there was a little hut. And I knocked on the door, and this woman opened the door, and her eyes were like stars. It was like staring into the cosmos of such depth and open space of infinite wisdom. And she was beautiful, and she took my hand, and she told me that she was Arian's Rod, the Lady of the Silver Wheel.
Mm.
And so Arian Rod became my guide through my ovate grade. So this weaving of the Mabinogi has been part of my life all throughout my journey as a pagan, really, from that first discovery to those inner workings. And then, yeah, so that's why the Mabinogi, really, in a nutshell, it's because I went looking for what I felt were the oldest stories of this island.
So it's not only expressing the beauty and the wonder and the other world aspects of this series of stories, but in the way I'm hearing it and the way that I hear your passion about it, Dave, is that you're honoring the essence, you're honoring the spirit of the Mabinogi by doing this. And it's like when you're doing the Mabinogi, it's like a symbiosis is taking place where it is propelling you towards something beautiful, and at the same time you're sharing the beauty that you found within it in your heart and
Mm.
soul, and you're sharing it, and you've
Yeah.
done it with all the branches, and this one is just the culmination of everything. And it's I applaud you for that, because I've heard a couple of the renditions from the earlier branches, Dave, and it's just phenomenal. And with the work that you do, and how you and Carrie even work together in this, and the different ways, the different hows of how it's presented, so that you truly do feel like you're there. And that's what impresses me. When you're reading books, I enjoy reading so much, but there's something different when a book really touches you and grabs you and just holds on to you and
Mm.
won't let you go until you really catch what it is that it's trying to portray for you.
Mm. I think what really took things up another notch is I said just now that when I first read it, that I didn't really understand aspects of the story. And over the years, there have been so many people who have said, "Oh, the Mabinogi is it's just a medieval tale. It doesn't contain any spiritual stuff whatsoever. It's just a medieval tale." And of course, I had no ammunition to push back against that until I really started talking to my good friend Christopher Hughes.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now, Christopher is head of the Anglesey Druid Order, no, obvious native Welsh speaker, first language Welsh speaker. And when we started to talk to each other about the stories, and he pointed me in the direction of books that I should read, like Will Parker's Four Branches of the Mabinogi is a massive tome. It's about 50 quid, but it's worth every penny. Um, and it's all I can describe it as is that there is linguistic archaeology within the Mabinogi that an English speaker just wouldn't understand, and I didn't understand it. And so you have simple things like, well, simple things if you speak Welsh. Let's put it that way. You have things like Havgan in the first branch.
Hmm.
Gwyllion's transformed into the guise of Arawn. Arawn is grey on a grey steed, a hunter on with a hunting horn around his waist, and he travels to the other world of Anun, and there he meets with Havgan in battle as
Mm.
in the guise of Arawn. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay, that's on a very surface level. You can see that as something quite magical. But then you realize, or you are told by your Welsh friend, that Havgan means summer. And Arawn, if you look at his guise, to me, is very much like a leader of the wild hunt of winter. And so what you then have within that tale that you would never pick up if you were just reading the book and English is what that tale represents is a battle, a traditional battle between summer and winter happening for dominance in the other world. And when you know that, that's great. But I didn't so I wanted to include, there's other things as well. Okay, if a name within the Mabinogi has the name Eon at the end, like Gwydion,
Right.
or Gwion from the Tale of Taliesin and Ceridwen, Gwion Bach, that means that they are a supernatural being. Yeah, they're not necessarily a god, but they're right on the edge of what will be there, almost like an otherworldly being. And if that, yes, so yeah, And if something has when, a name has when at the end, when can mean something like white or shining, yeah? And it means it's if you follow the root of that suffix, it leads directly to the idea that this character is indeed a god or a goddess. That stage is separate and beyond the Eon name. So Ceridwen, Branwen, yeah, those names signify that they are gods, goddesses, because of the suffix that they have within the Welsh language. And every single little syllable in a word seems to mean something, you know. English is the same. We've just forgotten a lot of our meanings of our words, whereas the Welsh haven't. They understand the different meanings of the different parts of the word. I'm so blessed that I know Christopher, because that was the ammunition I needed all those
Mm.
years ago to say, no, they are, and this is why. And so when I came to record my versions of the Mabinogi, I didn't want to just create dramatic versions of the translations. I wanted to incorporate all of those aspects, those spiritual aspects that are there for Welsh speakers, but aren't that are only implied if you are an English speaker. So when Arawn or Pwyll in the guise of Arawn meets Havgan in the first branch, I say something like, my father looked across the battlefield at his opponent, and it was as if the brightness of summer seemed to shine from beneath his helmet, you know. And so it implies and it tells you that what's going on without saying Havgan, whose name means summer. You know, that's not poetic to me. So
No.
so all those little things that I had learnt about those aspects of what I call to me, um, you know, archaeology of the language, linguistic archaeology, I was able to put all of those in to my retellings of the Mabinogi. And in my mind, that's part of what brings the magic back to the tale, certainly to an English ear. Um, they become what to me, they always were, and that is magical myths. That myths are funny old things, aren't they? You know,
Mm.
when you say myth to someone, they think, oh, it's just lies. It doesn't happen. It's nothing, myth. But I heard someone say once that no myth ever happened, but every myth is true.
Hmm.
And I really like that, because myths to me are ancient tales that come from a time when we were trying to work out our place within the world. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have, you know, any sort of scientists particularly. And we looked at the storm and we tried to work out our relationship with the storm. We looked at the sea and tried to work out our relationship with the sea. We looked at the turning seasons, and we looked at the sun and the moon, and we tried to explain and understand our position in the world in relationship to these vast cosmic forces that we could barely understand. And if you are an animist, which is a lot of our ancestors would have been animists, they would look at the storm, they would look at the sea, they would look at the sky, the sun and moon, and they would see them, because religion had no separation from regular life to our ancestors.
Hmm.
It was they wouldn't even had a word for religion. Even the Norse people, wouldn't have had a word that for their religion, even in the kind of late 900s. This is a long time ago. And so they would have just looked at the sun and they would have said, the sun is, well, I would say from an English point of view, the sun is Suna. In Irish Celtic mythology, the sun is Lu. In Welsh, the sun is Llai, light,
Mm.
and to me, that's where the root of the Mabinogi lies. It's in that root of people working out where they fit and their relationship with the world.
And that is that's something that we can bring forward. And I've said that so many times is we're not in a sense of trying to reconstruct what was there 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years ago. But we're taking the wisdom, the understanding, the knowledge, the spiritual insights from that time, we're bringing it forward, and we are bringing it into our souls, bringing it into our spirits, and making it real for this time. Like, for an example, I mean, we have all this technology around, and yet when I go into my physical grove out here beside the house, the cell phone and everything stays in the house. I don't
Mm,
want it there. Because it doesn't fit in the way that I look at things like that.
mm,
And so we need information, we need insights, we need encouragement, like you can draw from Mabinogi and other tales and other stories from ages gone by. And why do we want to do that? It's just to become a better human being. It's
mm,
to become connected with the world and not apart from the world, but a part of the world.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at the mythologies of peoples from like Northern Europe, for instance, I feel like the, my- the mythologies that we have of the Mabinogi, of the Eddas, for instance, from Iceland and the Norse Eddas, I think that they, when you look at them, not quite detached, but if you look at them and just go, you can see patterns, you can see similarities in myths from all of the different peoples of those times. And so when you look at there's a Celtic god called Tyrannus, yeah, which is the storm, yeah. I think it even means thunderer. And of course, then you have Thor, you
Mm.
know, the thunderer in the north. And then in Old English, you have Thunor, the thunderer. And it's like, it's just, to me, it feels like a lot of these are ways that different people of different cultures and languages, they weren't so different. I don't think history will tell us that they battled a lot and all those kinds of things. But ultimately, I think those people were very, very similar in their ways because they all needed to develop that relationship, as we've said, with those huge forces that are almost beyond comprehension of how large they are. And it's
Yeah.
interesting if you look at the moon and you say that is the moon, there's a separation there between you and it. Moon is just a silver rock in the sky. It's
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
moon
Yeah.
up there. Yeah. But when you realize, because all that work with Christopher, with the Welsh language, sent me down a huge rabbit hole looking at the English language of all those things that we seem to have forgotten. And then I found that the word moon comes from Mona, which is the name of the moon god in Old Germanic. And so when you look at the moon, instead of saying there's the moon, and you say, oh, there's Mona, suddenly your relationship changes. You have a direct, its name. You have a direct relationship with it. It's no longer a rock. It is a person. And that's how animism works. All of these different spirits are persons in their own right, that you can have relationship with.
The very thing, one of the things that Emer talked with me about, and she was asking different questions and so forth, of course, in the fireside chat. But she wanted me to differentiate uh, how my path may have shifted since I came into Obod and since I've been following a druid path and the work of path working and so forth. And I explained to her that I pretty much got a taste of what I now know and apply as animism in my life. And it's been with me for decades in my
Mm,
life. And it really started to come together for me when I started following some of the ways of the indigenous people of North America. And it was, I think it stirred the workings within my soul, within my heritage, within my ancestry, because I'm not Native American. And,
Mm,
I'm Welsh, Scot, and Irish. And it 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 just took me to another level, though. I respected it, I honored it. I called the tree my brother. I called the ocean my sister. I looked up grandfather sky, mother moon, but Dave, it was all verbal.
mm, mm.
It touched me a little bit, but I could make something sound very, very cool and very, very heart heart touching when I'm doing that kind of work because I
Mm.
know how to say it and I know what to do. It's different now because now the moon is Mona.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did that for the strawberry moon.
Yeah.
Um, I've been reading, uh, some books and talking about how to go outside at the full moon and look up at it and have a talk with it, have a conversation with it, and say thank you and I honor you and I thank you so very much for helping me on my journey and helping me to see some of the beauty that's there that I never noticed before. And I thank you for helping me see the mysteries of life
Mm,
and helping me connect with that other world. And without you, I don't know that I could do that. And then
mm,
when I see the sun coming up in the morning, and that was the big thing for me because, for, I don't know, the lion's share of my time in radio, I was the sign-on dude. And if I wasn't signing on the radio station, I was the morning news guy. And I always looked at, the sunrise. Yay, it's a sunrise. And I always thought about the sun. Never really equated that much with the moon until all this is coming about and said, okay, she's not
yeah.
just Grandmother Moon. Because Grandmother Moon, in the way that I said it, was Grandmother Moon. It's a moon.
Mm,
It's Mars. It's Mercury. It's a rock in the sky, like you were saying.
mm,
But now it's different. And I think giving it back full circle, that's the kind of thing that I believe what you're sharing can instill in people the the vast wonders, the vast beauty that's there for I'm not going to say the taking, but the embracing of
mhm,
those truths.
mm. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you touched on something there that I think is really important. There's a lot of, on social media, there seems to be a lot of, well, it almost feels like hysteria sometimes about it, which is, and I can see where it comes from, but the idea of cultural appropriation comes up a lot on social media. And and I think that that there's a problem there in as much as if you push back too much, what you're suggesting is that you can't even talk to people. And I think that us as Western people who have grown up as we have many of us lost touch with that animistic connection to our environment, whereas indigenous people haven't. And I think that there's a difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation.
mm,
And I come very much from that place, a place of cultural appreciation. I don't want to take anything, but
mm-mm,
I do want to talk to you. I want to see where our views meet. I want to because to that person, their ancestry and their beliefs have never changed. They still have that connection, whereas ours have been cut off, by, sadly, in my opinion, the coming of the religions of the book that say that we are separate somehow from the natural world, and,
hmm
and instill that and say, no, the world and the earth is there for your taking.
mm,
And I think that's been the biggest mistake ever, with our relationship with the planet that we rely and survive on with a countless myriad of other creatures and life forms. To think that we are somehow above everything else is the biggest mistake that humans
mm,
have made, I think. Whereas a lot of indigenous people have not made that mistake. And so I think that those conversations are really important to help us remember who we really are. and not to then go off and start selling white sage or sweat lodges and stuff like that, but to look at maybe that something that comes from a distant memory of our own that links us to when we had that relationship with the natural world.
Yeah.
Because I'm not Welsh either, and a few people have accused me of being English, of cultural appropriation, doing these Mabinogi albums. But again, my answer to that is exactly how you put it, that they come from a place of love, of absolute joyous love of a cultural expression through these tales, not from wanting to take it, but from wanting to just celebrate it. And the only way I can celebrate it is through the only language I speak. Do you know what I mean? And it really is that love of the Mabinogi and of Welsh culture and the language and everything else comes to me from a place of cultural appreciation and love, and not from anything else. I'm not taking it, but I am inspired by it. And I love the fact that I can talk to people like Christopher and they are willing to share that wisdom with me,
I want to interject one of the other selections from the what do they call them now? They don't call them albums. Do they still call them albums?
Yeah, I still call them albums. Yeah.
But you've got another one in there, and I don't know if you want to talk a bit about it first, or you want to have everyone listen to it, and then we can talk about it after. It's your call.
I'll talk about it first. Yeah.
All right, let's do that. So this is coming up is Son of the Waves, and I'm going to let you share a little bit about it. And without this silly voice coming back, when you're ready, just let us all know, and we'll play it. So tell us a little bit about Son of the Waves.
Okay, Son of the Waves is the perfect example of what I've been talking about. Within the Mabinogi that you will read in those translations from the Red Book of Hergest and the White Book of Rhydderch, Dullan is literally a tiny little speck of a tale. But when you look at what is said about Dullan, the son of the Waves, as a character, I know, everyone who reads it knows that once there was a magnificent story all about this god of the sea, Dullan, son of the Waves. And what we do know is that he was killed by his uncle Gavanan the Smith with a spear. And he is the brother of Llay Llaugefest, the reborn, in my opinion, Mabon of the fourth branch of the Mabinogi. Okay. And so I wanted to basically, Dullan is born in the most peculiar circumstances that I'm not going to fill in here, but just listen to the albums or read the book. Dullan is born and is instantly able, as a newborn baby, to run around the court. He's got bright golden hair, and everyone is joyous about this young child that is suddenly running around the court. But then he runs out of the court and to the cliffs, and then they watch as he dives into the sea. And he swims amongst the waves, and in the Mabinogi it says, he swims as if a wave would never break beneath him. But it was his fate to be killed by his uncle Gavanan the Smith, and that is one of the 3 unhappy blows of the Island of the Mighty. That is all it says in the book. Done. Right? So I wanted to write a story. I wanted to bring that part of the story a bit more to life, and to bring a bit more of a celebration of Dullan, son of the Waves. And this song is the result of that. When he arrived back, Math was fussing over the beautiful golden-haired boy who giggled and ran around the court. "His name shall be Dullan," Math shouted, and at that the boy ran from the court and out through the castle gates. He ran across the fields, followed by Math and his retinue, until he reached a high cliff, the sea crashing far below. The boy turned back to Math and his retinue and smiled. "I stand on this cliff and I look out, see the skiffs as they are rowing. Oh, castle's turning and I feel my heart is yearning to just let go, fall and to be free. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. I'm the son of the sea, brother to land and sky. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. And there in my home, I feel like I'll never die. Falling, then behind me voices calling as the waves break on the rocks below. Eyes wide, looking, searching, then they see me from the waves emerging, and I swim the great whale road. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. I'm the son of the sea, brother to land and sky. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. And here in my home, I feel like I'll never die. A sailor's song and a great spear, fast and long, is raised high, ready to take aim. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. The son of the sea, brother to land and sky. I'm the son of the sea, and a wave will not break below me. And here in my home, I feel like I'll never die. No wave ever broke beneath him, and he became known as Dullan's son of the wave. It was his destiny to be killed by his uncle Gavanan the smith, and that was one of the 3 unhappy blows of the Island of the Mighty.
Okay, that was quite a work. and thanks for setting it up for us ahead of time. And my brain just goes off, and having been a father, and I can see the times. I remember the times when my son first started walking.
Hmm.
It was a little creepy, and kind of, look at me, I'm walking away, and then probably at 6 or 8 or 9 months later, he's pretty much like you're talking about. He's running all over the place. It's here. So wait. Don't go over there.
That's about it. That is about it.
And
Yeah.
to think that soon after this child is born, it's already like that. And I'm going,
That's
it's like, oh my God, the parents of all that.
but that's what children are like who are born from the other world in these myths.
Ah,
They grow very quickly. Maybe not quite as quickly as him, but even Pryderi as a child, Fest as a child, they always say things like, by the time I was 4 years old, I was as if an 8-year-old. And so they grow up very, very quickly, these otherworldly beings in stories. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, for the sake of context of I would say chronological context, maybe. What I'm hearing then is that Mabinogi is probably or is older than, say, the tale of Gwion and the Great and the Green Knight,
Oh,
or
it's really
Gawain.
Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to say. You can't pinpoint these in
Okay.
time. But they were written down in the 1300s
Yeah.
by Christian monks. Um, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but one of the place they were written was Strata, Florida, in Wales, which
Yeah.
was one of the scriptoriums in Wales. And I think the story that I understand is that Rhydderch was one of the main families, and he could see the stories disappearing, so he commissioned the
Green.
monks at this place, the scriptorium, to place these stories onto parchment so they wouldn't disappear. And imagine that, two books, the Red Book of Hergest and the White Book of Rhydderch, are the only places where these stories exist. And the story of Ceridwen and Taliesin exists in there too, and Culhwch and Olwen. These are old stories written down in the 1300s. And if those books had been burnt by some crazy out nutcase of Henry VIII or whatever, we wouldn't have these stories. It's the same as Beowulf, in a way. Is the same thing, that somehow these stories have survived through the centuries, and and it's a blessing that they did. When they were first told, we don't really know.
Right.
I think if you look at the language, the understanding, that you're talking about the 800s, something like that.
Hmm.
Um, some people think that the second branch, you can sense Rome within that tale. Um, but there's nothing, I don't think there's any actual proof that when these stories were first being told by bards.
I think
Um,
I think when I was talking with Emlyn Phillips not too long ago, he's part of our OBOD group, and he's working on the story of the Green Knight, and he's done some research and wandered the same areas basically in Wales, and has done a lot of real interesting work there. And yet the thing that I recognize is what you've just shared, and that is that the books may have been commissioned around the 13th, 14th centuries, and yet the stories, who knows how old those stories really are, and how much maybe culturally they shifted over the years, over the eons. And I mean, some of these stories could be thousands of years old, and we don't
yeah.
know for sure.
And what is interesting is that the moment they are written down in those two books, they are then trapped. They are caught.
Mm,
And then historians and people and scholars can argue about the authentic Mabinogian, but I pretty much can guarantee there's no such thing. You
right.
know, I very much like folk songs. When Francis Child, the folk collector, went around
Right.
collecting songs and
Yeah.
things like that. He probably went to this village to talk to Kevin, and not you, Kevin, but a different Kevin. And he picked up a song called the Raggle Taggle Gypsies, but 10 miles down the road, there might have been Helen. And Helen sang an ever so slightly different version of the Raggle Taggle Gypsies, but her version wasn't collected.
Mm.
So the version that was collected was Kevin's and put in Francis Charles' book, and there we are. And then for decades after that, folk historians could argue about the authenticity of the Raggle Taggle Gypsies. And to me, it's the same as myth. I know from my researches into other aspects of mythology that if you look at the goddess Freya, for instance, if you look at within Germanic myths and Scandinavian myths, her story is held within the Eddas, and again thank the gods for Snorri, because without him we wouldn't have those either.
Right.
But we also know through archaeology that the way people related to Freya from one village to another would have been vastly different. And I'm sure it would be the same with the Mabinogi. The way people related to Gwydion, to Ceridwen, to Blodeuwedd, to all of these gods within the Mabinogi would have been different everywhere, all over, wherever they were uttered as names, depending on the culture of that particular village. So yeah, they would have changed all the time, and there can't be really one definitive version of the Mabinogi, because what we have got is how it ended up, but how it got there, we really have no idea.
Then we get into the magical word of inspiration. And I started off by saying, what inspired you to do this? And if you look at inspiration and you think about, so what inspired you to do this, and really break that word down a little bit, and what does inspiration even mean? And what comes to mind when you're talking about going from village to village to village, that's the essence, the air that breathes in those thought processes. So I get an idea and I start to write down something. I might write a triad, or I might do some poetry, or I might do some, prose of some sort. And somebody on the other side of the world at the same time could have the same, I believe this, could have the same inspiration, but they're going to present it in a way that their culture would understand. Whereas if I did it here, I would present it in such a way that the culture that I represent. And it's not saying one culture is better than the other. By no means do I mean that. It means that you share the story in such a way that it touches the listener and touches the heart, touches the reader in such a way to help move them through life to be better and to gain information. Before we started recording, I was saying that I got through the third branch in what I'm reading, and I'm reading through, and maybe not try to do spoilers or anything here, but I read the story about, I'm gonna butcher the name. You can correct me, but his great. Now that I want it, I can't find it. I'll be there. Stay tuned for this next exciting episode of what is his, anyway, his name starts with an M, and he's a
Okay.
he's a
Manawydan.
Thank you.
Manawydan?
Yeah, Meadow.
Okay.
He goes from town to town to town, and he creates stuff. And every time he creates something, he does it so well that everybody else in the community want to come over, and they quote they want to slay him. How that's done doesn't matter. But I'm waiting, and I'm going through, and no one wants to slay him. And the last bit of that third branch, instead, these creatures, I'll say, because I already know what it is, but they come along and they wipe out his crops because he's never tried that. He's never tried farming, from what I could gather. And he says, for crying out loud, what in the world's going on? And you know what I'm waiting for, Dave? I'm waiting for, what's the lesson I need to learn from this? What's the lesson I need to learn from this and it turns out interesting. I'll tell the listeners, you're going to have to read the third branch too, and you're going to have to get Dave's third branch of the Mabinogi CD.
Yeah. See,
But
I would say listen to it. Go on Spotify, Apple Music, buy the CD, download whatever you do, and start at the first branch and listen first, second, third, and after this the fourth branch, and follow it through one after the other, and you know, I remember saying that the fourth branch was my favorite, you know,
Mhm.
but my the third branch was my least favorite. I
Hmm.
have to say, when I read it through, it felt quite linear as a story.
Yeah, it is.
Um, but then for each branch, I have consciously opened up to the spirit of the gods, goddesses, heroes who are within the story and said, "Come on, tell me your tale.
Yeah.
This is it. I want to tell your tale. Open up, tell me." And to be honest with you, the third branch is that to me now is one of the most magical stories of all of them. You know, when you realize and see what is happening and why those creatures are stealing his crop and how it's all happened and everything and how it links in with the first branch. Oh my word, it was a joy to put that album together because I literally disappeared almost into the other world for the whole period that I was doing it. The first branch sort of sets the scene. It introduces the otherworld of Anun, Praderi, Rhiannon, the goddess of horses, linked with Epona and stuff.
Hmm.
And then the second branch is it's like a Shakespearean play or an opera. Everybody dies, you know.
Yeah.
It's like just I searched as far as I could to find an uplifting thing to sing or write about in the second branch. It's just not there. So I had to just surrender to the fact that a this is a tragedy. It's a Shakespearean or opera tragedy. And then the third branch is like this otherworldly adventure
Yeah.
around Britain. Doesn't just take place in Wales. It comes over to England and to London and all these different places as well.
Yeah.
And then you get to the fourth branches, which is where I would say the magic of a wizard is really introduced. The magic of a magician is really introduced to the stories of the Mabinogi in the fourth branch. And that's when it starts to become quite human as well, in my opinion. So they all have their own thing. But folks, first, just go on, listen to it. That's all
Mhm.
I ask. You know, just listen to the stories. If you want to read the translations after that, you're fine. You will find everything in the translations are there, but there's also those extra bits and pieces that I found out on that journey through the language with Christopher.
That's marvelous, Dave. That's you've encouraged me.
Good, good. Yeah,
Mission accomplished. So,
yeah,
if people, when people want to get the music, I know you're on Bandcamp, you've got your own website, you've got all sorts of opportunities, probably even Patreon, I think. But
yes. I have a
it's
patron. Yeah,
so tell us some options, and I should say that the links will be in the show notes, and
yeah,
as far as how you can procure some of these treasures that you've created, and
yeah.
just tell us verbally what would you
Sure. Well, the
suggest?
hub of all things Dave is really my website, which is paganmusic.co.uk. And from there, you can get links to all the social media places that I'm on. I'm probably I'm not actually hugely active on a lot of social media platforms. I do a once I do a once a month live show, streamed live show
Hmm.
on YouTube and my Facebook page. So that there'll be links to some of those in the concerts as well. Yeah, the Patreon is fabulous because in this age of streaming, let's be frank, it's hard to earn a living from music because it's just people aren't buying the music anymore. So, and I know I can guarantee you and I can say from my heart that those Mabinogi albums are not created for monetary gain because
Right.
particularly on Spotify and Apple Music, people do not listen to the Mabinogi's albums over and over again, like they do music albums. They will listen to the whole thing through, and then they might listen to it maybe once or twice a year after that. So, so, but those, I'm not complaining because they give me worldwide distribution of my music, and that's what ultimately you want is you want people to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can find it there. But Patreon has been a gift to me, and my Patreon subscribers are so obliging and wonderful. And we have a live after my house concerts on Patreon. We have a live Patreon Zoom where I meet up with in person with all my Patreons who turn up, and we chat and they ask me questions, and we talk about magic and about druidry and all that kind of stuff. And they are two of the highlights of my month, to be honest with you. That along with putting together Druidcast. So yeah.
So Druidcast
Mm.
is it just let's see, 2019, 19 years?
Yeah, I
18,
started it in
19?
June 2007.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a 19 years, and we haven't missed a month.
No, you haven't. Well, every now and again for December, maybe, but
Yes, so I have
that's a
started to
given.
have December off, to be honest. That's fair enough, really, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
you should. That's okay to do that.
Mm.
So what have you got coming up outside of obvious go out and get this, but have you got any other things going in the proverbial cauldron in the background?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, this may well be my last CD I produce, maybe my last album I produce.
Oh,
Um, because people I've noticed, so many people do listen to music on Spotify and Apple Music nowadays, and the albums are not necessarily how people engage with music anymore. So I think what I've decided to do is have a go at of really of just when writing when I'm inspired, I will write a song. I will record the song and I will release the song as a single, and I will just keep going like that.
oh, okay.
Basically, it takes the pressure off as well because, when you decide to record an album, that's 10 songs and I'm not prolific, so write my first song, and it might be a year and a half before that song is even recorded and released. Whereas doing singles, and I'll release them as Bandcamp album as well, as Bandcamp singles as well. But I think that it will just be far more spontaneous. I'm quite excited about it, actually. It's not a negative thing, in my opinion. It's actually makes it far more spontaneous, and I can get these songs out to people a much quicker than I could if I was just waiting to get 10 songs together to release an album.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Singles are on their way. I am also, me and Kerry have just bought a camper van. So
Yep.
we are heading off in adventures. We're going to go to all of the sacred sites we can go to: stone circles, long barrows, hill forts, sacred places around Britain. And we run a YouTube channel called The Green Grimoire.
Oh,
And yeah, and Kerry started it because she wanted to make videos of her allotment of growing vegetables and things like, and seasonal sort of reflections of trying to be almost self-sufficient on an allotment. But we've decided to expand now into van life. And we're going to start doing videos of ourselves going to these sacred sites because people, particularly in the States and Australia and that Canada, they love to see places like Wayland Smithy and have a personal kind of guide through these sites. So that's on the way during the summer as well. So it's very exciting. Good
that
times.
is. That is. Any closing thoughts you'd like to have for this episode? Poof, and it's like when I'm listening to Druidcast, you said, "Good grief, where's the time gone?"
I know. It really has flown by, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much everything I want to talk about. And all I will say is that I hope everybody who has listened to this enjoys the journey through the Mabinogi albums and maybe listens to some of the other songs as well, maybe. You never know. And if they are at a show or anything like that, do make sure to come and say hello because I always love to meet people when I'm touring as well. So, yeah.
Thanks. Dave, you're a tremendous asset, and I so do appreciate your work. So thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome. Thank you, Kevin, for inviting me on your show again. It's been lovely.
Spin you a tale of a mother's anger and a curse doomed to fail. Ariadne, Rod's baby, whom she did disown, and Gwydion stole him to raise as his own. Now the boy, he grew to be strong and brave, but his mother cursed him not to be given a name. When he cast a stone where a wren it did land, she said, the young lion has a steady hand. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. So she laid upon him a new destiny. You shall never have any weapons unless given by me. Then a phantom army by Gwydion's charms forced Ariadne Rod to give lie his arms. Then in rage and torment she laid down this curse: you shall never marry a woman of the race of the earth. But Gwydion and Math planned to foil her hate, and with the herbs of the forest they twisted his fate. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. So they gathered from the forest, from the grove where they meet, flowers of oak, broom and meadow sweet, and uttering upon them a verse of power, a figure began to form from the flowers. Oh, rise and wake, fairest lady of spring, come and be wed to the forest king. Flower face is your name, sweet Lord, I wed you. Carry life within your breath. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. Come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come hawthorn, come May. Come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come Broadowhead, come wait. Come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come hawthorn, come May. Come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come oak, broom and meadow sweet, come Broadowhead, come wait. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May. Call the May, call the May, call the May, call the May. Gather round people and call in the May.
That was Damh the Bard once again with his song Oak, Broom, and Meadow Sweet from one of his first albums, The Spirit of Albion. And he felt that would be a good way to kind of wrap up this episode. And that is the episode for this week. I do hope you enjoyed my chat with Damh the Bard, and your appetite has been well primed to purchase and listen to the fourth branch of the Mabinogi with Damh the Bard. And you know, reading the Mabinogi was quite a wonderful experience for me, but I have to say, as Dave had even mentioned, sitting back, putting on your headset, or listening on whatever device you want, and just closing your eyes and enjoying those stories is a whole different experience. So, there are links in the show notes to connect with Damh the Bard and all the treasures he has available to enrich your life right there on his website. As always, my deepest gratitude to you, dear listener, for tuning into the program. It is truly appreciated. And remember, if you're seeking insights and advice on how to create your own better life, and if you'd like to dive into self-care, self-development, experience some hypnotherapy, distant shamanic work, Reiki, drop me a line, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com, for your free discovery call. And as I've mentioned before, in that discovery call, we will be discussing your goals, your plans, and set some plans for you to achieve them, and then moving forward with your journey toward a better life. You can also visit my website, towardaBetterLife.com, for past episodes, blog entries, ways to enhance your spiritual journey, and the upcoming events. Please do subscribe to the program Toward a Better Life through your favorite podcast platform, and leave your review, if you would please, on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, whatever podcast platform you might be using. And don't forget to check out Toward a Better Life on Patreon, where ad-free episodes are available for paid subscribers, and as a paid subscriber you can enjoy episodes without advertisements, along with discounts for my services, classes, and workshops. All you need to do is visit Patreon, search for Toward a Better Life podcast. Always remember, if you'd like to share your story, your music, your prose, or if you want to be a guest on the show, just write to me, kevin@towardaBetterLife.com. Until next week, enjoy your mystical journey toward a better life.